Alright, Studio here. In this video, I'm bringing you a push guide for the Wave of Light Monk build. This will by far be one of the best builds in Season 26 when it comes to pushing. After the massive inner Monk nerf to especially the Fire rune, this will be an amazing build. This along with the Earth ally will be the best builds in the entire game, probably in terms of pushing the highest. But definitely the best Monk builds. So in this video, I'm going to show you everything that you need to understand about this build so you can try this and push high with this. It's actually a really fun build. It can be difficult to learn, but once you figure out how it actually works, it's a lot of fun, and I highly recommend you try it out. So it can be a really squishy build, at least in terms if you have ranged mobs like I do here, or you have affixes that will kill you. So you might have to go and fish for a good mob type that isn't ranged like I have here. This was just a random thing that I was doing. You can definitely push this a lot higher. Everything basically ties around having your Epiphany. Since your Mimic you spawn from the Epiphany and Rapid Strike, it does all the damage for you. And it's just a full-on cooldown based build. As you can see, what we're doing is we are dashing around. We want to make sure we keep our blinding speed from the dash on cooldown, so we have the damage mitigation from that. So we use that to kite around, find elites, find more monsters that we can then kill. And it's all about trying to get as many of your Ray of Light out as possible, because you need to reset your cooldowns. The build relies heavily on cooldown and cooldown reduction. Especially during your fire rotation, you want to make sure you're pumping out damage. So the rotation is basically dashing around, making sure everything is cycloned because you need the braces to proc and to give you increased damage. And you want to keep your Epiphany up, that you're resetting with Obsidian with the Zodiac. And once you get low on Spirit, you want to then use your Mystic ally, Wear ally, as this spell use will give you a ton of Spirit back. You spend your Spirit from your Wave of Light, you then gain the Spirit back from your Mystic allies, and all your damage comes from the Wave of Light, and specifically the damage comes from the Mimic that you spawn from your Rapid Strike and the Epiphany. This means you want to have your Epiphany going at all times, because this is how you get the damage and damage mitigation. And the build has incredible AoE potential, and it's actually not that bad in terms of the Rift Guardian. Where it will struggle is if you only have, let's say, 5 or 10 monsters. That's where it can struggle, but the immense wave clear and just the potential for clearing the entire screen is so satisfying, and is what makes this build really strong and good. Now, I am by no means an expert at this build, and even though I've only played it for quite a few hours, I was still able to clear 132 in a really good time. So if you put in enough practice and patience with this build, you're able to clear really high, guaranteed. Now, as I mentioned before, in terms of the Rift Guardian, it is neither the worst or the best build. It is somewhere in the middle. It is okay in terms of killing it. You just want to make sure you keep everything on cooldown. And of course, always make sure to do damage in your fire rotation. But with the correct playstyle and with enough cooldown reduction, you should be able to hit with your Wave of Light all the time and have no downtime of it. And as I mentioned before, this build can clear really high. It will probably clear somewhere in the mid 40s or so. And it will be an S+ tier in terms of this potential for pushing. So if you're going to play the Monk in Season 26 and you don't like how the Earth ally pushes, then I definitely recommend trying this one out. It's a really fun build, but it can also be pretty difficult to play, since it can be quite squishy. And if you get monsters that are ranged, or you have a lot of elites on you with affixes that can reach you, then you can be a lot of trouble. But it will definitely pay off if you put in enough practice with this build. It is just amazing for clearing really high. So the potential is definitely there. Now let's look at the gear and how everything works, shall we? Now it is of course an LoD build, i.e. Legacy of Dreams here. Basically, when you have no bonuses equipped, i.e. a 6-piece, every legendary increases your damage and toughness. And this effect is of course doubled for ancient items. Now, a quick disclaimer, this will probably be one of the most difficult builds to make in the entire game, because you need basically full ancients, and some of the rolls are insanely difficult to get as well. There's a lot of secondary you need to high roll on. So let's start with the weapons, shall we? So the first weapon is Kyoshi's Blade, and the first thing you need to make sure is you have a high secondary. I would say at least 240 out of 250 is good. Anything below that is not very good. And then after that, you want cooldown reduction, percent damage, and area damage. And for the olive weapon, Rapid Strike, this weapon basically makes it so your spirit spenders that teleport while Epiphany is active are also mimic on a nearby target with up to 450 increased damage for free. Basically, all your damage now comes from this. We are buffing that mimic that spawns. So when we are in Epiphany, when we hit enemies and we have something to hit, there'll be a mimic that will also cast the same spell. This means we want to buff this mimic as much as possible for anything that involves the pet. So for instance, Enforcer and all that. And on this weapon, you want a high secondary, of course. Try and get one close to 450. I would say 430 or so would be minimum. And then after that, you basically want it like this. So you want cooldown reduction, you want the critical hit damage that always rolls on it, and you want area damage as well. So already on the weapons, these are extremely hard to get, by the way, at least with a high secondary. For the first ring, Convention of Elements here, make sure to get a high secondary, 190 or 195 or above. And after that, you want cooldown reduction, critical hit damage, and crit chance. It's all a ring, obsidian ring of the zodiac. You need this in order to get enough cooldown reduction for your epiphany desert shroud. Now we do already have a ton of cooldown reduction. We have over 63% right now. You need a really high percent. Basically, you need cooldown everywhere you can. And even with this cooldown here, you still need to proc this obsidian ring of the zodiac as much as humanly possible so you can keep your epiphany up. Because you can't keep up your epiphany, then you do no damage because you don't spawn your mimic, and also you don't get a damage mitigation from the desert shroud, of course the 50% here, and also you don't keep up your stone gauntlets, which is another 50% increased armor. So if you drop your epiphany for more than just a second, you'll most likely do 0 damage, and you will most also likely die. So it's a very unforgiving build when it comes to gearing it, getting enough cooldown reduction and all that. But on the rolls, on the simulator zodiac, you want attack speed, crit chance, and cooldown reduction. On the gloves, using stone gauntlets here, get critical hit damage, crit chance, and then cooldown reduction and area damage. Now I rolled area damage on mine here, but if you don't have enough cooldown reduction, about 60 or so, then you need a cooldown as well here. But you need about 60%, maybe even higher cooldown reduction for the build to even function. But a quad fader would be even better, of course, with both the crit, area damage, and cooldown reduction. For the shoulders, having the fibris here, try and get a high secondary. You want this as close to 50 as possible. And after that, you want cooldown reduction, mystic area damage, and area damage. The helmet, you want a high wave of light damage, of course. It rolls between 125 and 150, get it close to 150. And you want critical hit chance, dexterity, and vitality. On the syndicate, the first thing you want to look at is of course getting a high secondary. It can roll up to 30, try and get that as close as possible. And after that, you of course want socket on it. You want fire damage, dexterity, and vitality. For the build, witching hour, dexterity, vitality, attack speed, and critical hit damage. For the pants and blackthorns here, get fire damage, dexterity, and vitality. For the boots, Cruder's boots, get a high secondary. I would say 190, even 195 or above. And after that, you want wave of light, dexterity, vitality, or resistance. For the amulet, get Scourge amulet. You want fire damage, and crit chance. For the bracers, Pinto's pride, get a high secondary here again. It can roll from 125 to 150. I would say get 145 or above. And after that, you want fire damage, crit chance, dexterity, and vitality. So as you can see, in terms of the gear, it is very difficult. You need to get most of these ancient if possible, and there's also a lot of things with the secondary. You have both the weapons, you have your Cruder's boots, you have the convention of elements, you have the Pinto's pride. So this is the kind of build you don't necessarily try and build early on in the season. It's just kind of items you might find doing anything else, but you just really need to make sure you get a high percent in cooldown reduction here, guys. Very important to get about 60, even higher if you can. And for linear gems, of course, as I mentioned before, Legacy of Dreams. And then Enforcer, decrease the damage of your pets, which is basically the mimic that you spawn with your Rapid Strike. And then also Baneless Dragon, so you can actually kill the Rift Guardians. In terms of the cube, for the ribbon slot, we have the Instance Torch for massive spear reduction in terms of wave of light and also massive damage increase. Brightness of Lizard Guard, so you get a ton of damage increase. And then Unity for toughness increase. Make sure you also get one of these on your follower. In terms of the spells, Cyclone Strike, Implosion to pull mobs in, to of course also to proc you the Fibris and your Brightness Desert Guard. Wave of Light, Explosive Light to clear out the entire screen. This is a really nice spell. I love the animation of this. This looks amazing. Mystic Ally, Air Ally. So when you press this, you get 200 spirit back. You want to make sure you don't use this too often. Only use this when you're low on spirit. Epiphany Desert Shroud, make sure to try and have this up 100% of the time. Dashing Strike, Blinding Speed, get around the map. And also the damage mitigation from this dodge chance up all the time. So basically at least use it every 4 seconds. And then Serenity Ascension. As you can see, this lasts for 4 seconds. And so does your Convention of Elements. So you want to line this up. So you use your Serenity at the exact same time just before your fire rotation. So you can stand and do all your damage in the fire rotation and you don't have to move or do anything at all. Just to squeeze out as much damage as possible in the fire rotation. In terms of the passives, get Being of Vita for more cooldown reduction. Seize the Initiative for more attack speed, so you can dash around, you can attack quicker, you can do more Wave of Light. Harmony for more all resistance. And then Near Death Experience, because you might die a lot early on. You can swap this out later on if you start feeling comfortable with the build, but at least early on, make sure you have Near Death Experience on. Then as I mentioned before, because we have the Unity in our group, of course, make sure you also have a Unity on your follower, along with a relic so your follower cannot die. And after that, of course, a Flavor of Time, a Nemesis Bracelet, and an Oculus Ring. Then also 25k main stat. You can either get this by socketing with intelligence, augmenting, all that, get 25k main stat. So you get the effect of all the spells up to the maximum amount. So for instance, the Prophetic Harmony here will give you 10% cooldown reduction because we have 25k. If we, for instance, remove this chest piece here, we're down to 21k main stat, we will go down to 9.38% cooldown reduction, and we don't want that. So you want to make sure you have 25k main stat here. If you found this video useful, also make sure to check out the playlist here, as I'll be covering everything important to know in Season 26. I hope to see you in one of those videos. Peace out, everyone.